Public comment is open. I don't see any public, but if you are stealth and want to come up and speak to us, do we have any cards? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Approval of the minutes. Any additions, corrections? Motion, Luella Haskew. Second, Mitchoff. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? No abstentions. Consent calendar items 1 through 6. Whoops. We did the minutes already, right? Let's do 1 through 6. Anybody want to pull anything or move? Luella Haskew motion, second by Kevin. Any objection? That's 4-0. On to 7. Peter, you got the update on the participation in the California Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program.
Good evening, Chair and Planning Committee. I presented this item at the board meeting last month, and I just wanted an opportunity to give you an informational update as to where we're at. Of course, the board meeting next week will have the board take action on this item. We're still formulating that action because there seems to be new information coming in almost daily. But as I discussed last month at the board, the Marine Clean Energy has asked us to help to partner with them for the Cal EVIP, that's Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, through the CEC. It's an existing CEC program. They have existing pillars that they follow when they do this program. Basically, they would work with us if they choose to bring funds into Contra Costa to develop things like the incentive amounts and stuff like that. But how the program works, who gets it, how people apply for it is already set up by CEC, so we don't have any influence over that. I still have been trying to get certain answers from CCC. At this point, I haven't been able to get those, so I'm just going to, have to make recommendations to the board based on what I know and what I feel. Two things that I'm putting a lot of consideration into is, one, the funds that we have are TFCA and Measure J Program 17 Community Alternative Funds. Those funds, as you know.
Measure J1, not 2?
Measure J1, thank
okay.
you. Those funds, go to support our other authority TDM programs in 501 and Contra Costa, so we have to be sensitive to those programs and make sure they continue to operate. We also have 2 pending grant programs that we know are coming forward, the VW Mitigation Trust Program for light-duty infrastructure and the CEC Community Challenge Phase 2. As you recall, we had to participate in Phase 1 and develop our EV blueprint, which we did. That made us eligible for Phase 2. So those funds will be coming forward. We need to maintain some funds so that we can have match funds for those. So what I'm formulating is a pretty limited funding package to go towards this Cal VEIP program to bring to the board next week. It won't be a lot of money. It's certainly not as much as MCE would like us to participate with, but it'll at least get us on the team and make us part of the program. So that's all the information I have. Happy to answer any questions.
We have a question first, Romick, and then Mitchoff, but I want clarification. We're meeting next week?
Yeah,
okay.
Because we're not meeting we didn't meet. Okay.
And ladies first. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. My county staff called me on this because they've been wanting to do this too, in the county as a whole as in MCE, but we just haven't been able to find the funding. And I read your report, and it said over 4 years and blah, 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 blah. But this is about electrification, correct? Okay.
That's correct.
And we would be applying as partners. I got a new computer, and I just did something stupid. There we go. Dave and I, as you know, are on the Air Board, and there's a lot of grant money there and the Volkswagen settlement and the whole thing. So this is just through the California Energy Commission.
Correct.
They're not getting Volkswagen money, as I understand it. It's all going to Air Resources Board. So this is just another way of funding additional.
Correct.
Okay. And I read your report also said that a study's been done that we should have this many, and this will barely get us to there.
That's right.
And so, again, and I've been after our various cities to apply for these grant funds, but right now what we're hearing at Air Board is the thing that most inhibits people from buying, and I have friends who did this, an electric or a hybrid car, is they don't trust where they're going to have a place to plug it in. And so we need to be getting that money. And I know this will be used, I would hope this money would be used internally at, in our downtowns and shopping centers, and we'll take care of Interstate 5 and 680 and different things. And I'm hoping, Randy, in your many travels and conferences, this is a high topic. 'Cause we need to get. I drove to Portland over the holidays, and I don't have a Tesla, but I was looking, if I did take a Tesla for $300, where all could I stop? And I think one was in Reading, and I guess one was hopefully I think there was one in Medford, and I thought, well, if it was raining and snowing and you're trying to get over the mountain, you might use up a little bit more battery power. So I'm just making a big pitch. Long story short, that we need as much electrification as we can get. And I see your bus is electric downtown, and I thought that was fabulous. So,
Yeah, I think one of the concerns with this particular program, Cal EVIP, is we don't have control over where in the county
so it would be up to
that infrastructure
MCE?
goes.
CEC.
It would be up to CEC.
CEC.
So what they do is they put the application online, and whoever applies, they earmark
I
funds
see.
for
It's
that.
sort of like an
and so
RFP.
it
We
would
want
be in
one
Contra
here.
Costa, but we don't have any control over that. That's why I'd say let's go real slow on that one and put more effort into these other programs that we know are coming forward, like the
That's
Volkswagen.
Well, and that, I just want
where
on the
we-
record, the
Yeah.
county so far, we don't got any money. But that does bring up an interesting point, and I may have raised it offline with somebody. But in Pleasant Hill, I know they were trying to put a charging station at the Safeway on Oak Park, and the city turned it down because of certain building codes or something about how many parking spots and ADA and all that. So if you ever see the opportunity through our legislation issues to make it easier to put in these charging stations and not be so prescriptive, that would be very helpful too. Thank you.
Kevin?
My question, basically, you answered it
Information.
as what do we have control over? And apparently nothing, other than giving some dollars giving some dollars into the program. But where the charging stations go, we won't have any control over. We won't have any say over where it is. And I think as we move forward, that's going to be, especially to the whole board. There has to be some control over here if we're going to provide some of the funding for it. There has to be some control. We have to be able to say
Right.
where the money goes. And when we have four sub-regions, we'd like to see it spread out between the 4 sub-regions.
Right. Where our control would be in this program is where we market the program. So if we market it in the communities where we wanted to see it, that would be more likely that those would be where the applications would come from. But it doesn't stop somebody from outside of those areas to hear about it and go ahead and apply for it.
But that isn't a jurisdiction. That's like a private contractor who wants to put it in. Okay.
More, anything, Luella? I have one point, and I told Peter about it already. My biggest concern is, I'll bet you John Joya and Tom Butt are just jumping up and down about this because AB 617 in Contra Costa is only Richmond. But, okay, just so you know that this was all about greenhouse gases, air district, care areas would be a way to do it. Outside of that, this is information only. We'll move on to 8.0. Go ahead.
I need some clarification. So we're going to have a ledge update tomorrow. What do we need to work on as far as legislation? Because we are putting our package together.
I guess the best way to state it is we jurisdictions, or actually it's private companies coming in, there needs to be more, and I understand it's in the building code, which more flexibility on where these electric charging stations can be placed. Because I guess as an example, as I understand it, is if you're driving up Oak Park, Pleasant Hill Library's here, Safeway is on the corner of Patterson and Oak Park. And the company wanted to put it sort of on the side because you got to be near a bus stop. But the city said, no, you got to put it closer to like a handicap parking spot or provide a handicap parking spot. And it was just they were going to have to dig more trenches and it was just ridiculous. So anything that provides flexibility, nothing, to make it easier for jurisdictions to install charging stations at appropriate locations, I guess. Thank you, Mayor.
Anything further? Go ahead, Kevin.
Just to follow up, just to clarify, the money's all going to go into a pool. we're going to need organizations, private organizations, public organizations, to apply for that. So if we're building a brand new gas station in Oakley and they've reserved spots for future charging stations, they could apply to help have it funded for them.
Correct.
Okay.
They would get an incentive. We would work with the CDC and the other partners, MCD, to come up with kind of how much the rebate's going to be or how much the incentive's going to be.
Right.
And how the marketing is going to happen and all that kind of stuff.
Is there any money in this for multifamily? We're pushing that like crazy, Peter. And I mean, if you're a developer and you've got a development agreement and you're about ready to break ground, is there money for someone to apply just to wire it? I am amazed that to wire a parking space may be as little as $275. And then down the road, we used to do that with air conditioning. Not that, well, I guess I am getting pretty old. But, I mean, not everybody wanted an air conditioner, so you prepped. And at the very least, we should be pushing to prep these. We're talking about 90% electric. It's 2050 might be the law, but the projections are to do it by 2040. And all these people are going to turn around and say, okay, I got to pay $6,000-$7,000 to do something we could have done for $275, especially in light of you could put transformers in and have, during brownouts, it power your
Well,
house.
and I
Go
sit
ahead.
on ABAG, and we're going to be dealing with, I mean, there's a whole bunch of people. I'm not sure transportation agencies are going to be, they got to do a lot of stuff. I don't disagree with you, because what we're finding in our ledge at that end is that we want to make it easier for, I live in a condominium, to go to my homeowners association and say, you know, I want to put something in. And right now, the law is that I have to pay everything.
Yep.
And so they're trying to change that, so because it's an amenity, if you will, once I sell and move, it's still there, that there should be some shared costs. So it's really a fast-moving and fascinating.
I think you bring up a good point. From what I've heard, there's been some stories of homeowners associations that don't want EV charging because they do cause conflict within the community of who gets to use it, who's parked there. Is somebody parked there and
Then you put a rule
not?
in place
Yeah.
like we do at other places,
Exactly.
no more than two. Well, and we need, what we're learning at Air Board to teach the public is we need new education. You don't need to get it's not like filling up your tank. You don't need to get a full charge. You just plug in, do your business, and leave for the next person. But we've still got that mentality of, I need a full tank.
Yep. We have that argument quite a bit. Okay, we're sufficiently informed by Peter Engel. Let's go to Matt Kelly 1, item 8, approval to issue an annual ULL policy advisory letter. You're up, Matt.
Can you get the motion on that one, please?
It's information only.
Sorry.
Hey, I read this stuff. Go ahead, Matt. I feel like a big shot now.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members.
See me
So-
do that.
Tonight, we're here to talk about the annual Urban Limit Line Advisory Letter. As you know, Measure J through the Growth Management Program requires that each jurisdiction in the county adopts and complies with an urban limit line, either by adopting their own voter-approved urban limit line or by adopting the county's urban limit line. An annual advisory letter is transmitted to all the jurisdictions outlining the ULL requirements as found in Measure J. And this letter outlines the process one must go through should their jurisdiction be considering actions that may conflict with the ULL provisions in the growth management program. And jurisdictions, as you know, are allowed to request that the authority advise them on whether or not those proposed actions may put their compliance with the growth management program in jeopardy. And we do receive those advisory requests from time to time, as you probably recall over the last year or two. So we have included the draft advisory letter in the packet, and staff's recommendation tonight is to transmit the letter to the mayor of the 19 jurisdictions and the county administrator, with copies sent to the councils, boards, city managers, planning directors, and the checklist preparers in each location. That's all I have for you and can answer questions. Another growth management program item. This is the big growth management item, the checklist. The Measure J Growth Management Program checklist, compliance checklist, is the mechanism for local jurisdictions to document their compliance with the GMP in order to receive their 18% return to source funds for local streets and roads maintenance, as well as an additional 2.09% that is received in some parts of the county. The 2016 and 2017 reporting cycle closed last June, and the next cycle will cover calendar years 2018 and 2019. And the LSM payments for this cycle cover fiscal years 2019, 2020, and 2020-21. CCTA's finance department has initially estimated that there's about $16.5 million available for fiscal year 1920. However, that won't be finalized until the end of this fiscal year when all sales tax revenues are accounted for. The checklist contains 12 primary items that must be reported on by each jurisdiction, and that includes progress on implementation of the action plans for routes of regional significance, housing production at each income level as reported to Housing and Community Development, the state agency, the maintenance of effort, which is the item where jurisdictions must prove that they are spending their own local money in addition to Measure J LSM money on their local maintenance. So they're not relying solely on Measure J 18%. It also includes reporting on those expenditures. So the last new item we added was the audit report, where jurisdictions report on any expenditure over $10,000 and exactly what they spent those dollars on, how much pavement was laid down, how many linear feet of sidewalks were constructed, things like that. Staff is not proposing adding any new items this cycle. However, we have thought about adding items, discussed that internally. The one that keeps rising to the surface goes back to Peter's item, the reporting on electric vehicle infrastructure in each city. That's something we think would be helpful for tracking the implementation of our EV readiness plan for the county. However, with the measure on the ballot in March, if that passes, there will be a lot of new requirements on the checklist. The whole growth management program and checklist will be overhauled, and new requirements will be added relating to the policies in the TEP, like complete streets and the ridgeline protection policies, things like that. So, it may not be an opportune time to add any new items, but certainly wanted to, identify those items that we've been thinking of internally. If you do think that adding a reporting item for EV infrastructure is important for this cycle, we can take that to the GMP task force at their meeting later this month. But we're not recommending that at this time. That's up to you. Monies for fiscal year 1920 will be paid out starting in August upon authority approval of the checklist. The off-year payment will then be paid on the anniversary of their approval. Checklist season opens this April and closes the following June 30th of 2021. So our recommendation tonight is to distribute the checklist, allowing jurisdictions to start submitting their checklists April 1st for review by our Citizens Advisory Committee and the Planning Committee. That's all I have, and I can take any questions.
Seeing none, we, okay, Quick Light, you're up.
I just want to announce that James Hinkamp will be leaving us. Yeah, he just got here, but he's got he's got circumstances that
Leave the who out of the
that
minutes.
would be understanding. So he's following his fiancee to Amsterdam.
Yeah, they're pretty cool over there. That's
So
that
rather
group,
than try to bend his arm to stay and leave his fiancee in Amsterdam and him here, it's not going to work. So
told you, Amsterdam sent 23 people to EBS.
James, will be when Randy or somebody travels to Amsterdam, he'll just have to book one.
They have a Morton's there?
I already have it on my calendar.
Okay, so if there's no other business,
Thank you for your service.
thank you. We adjourn to the next regular scheduled meeting proposed for February 5th at 2999 Oak Road, Suite 110. Good night.